So we open in this hotel that's also a general store, which is run by this guy, Mr. Hallett. This other guy is a private investigator who is looking for a woman who has been missing for 6 days.
I hear that visitors around these woods have been disappearing like donuts at a fat folks convention.
I already don't like this guy.
Carried off by flying saucers. I've seen the stories in those newspapers. What they won't say to make $1.
Mr. Hallett seems to be channeling Judd from Pet Sematary.
Marsh can be a tricky thing, especially for those that don't know a sump pit from a swimming pool.
So anyway, Bateman decides to get a room so he can keep an eye on things.
I don't think I can.
He mentions that only one couple is registered, and there's one of them now.
Mister.
Oh, and we're doing the film noir thing again. It's fine here, but I liked it better in Pool Sharks. Either way, he comments on the jars on the front desk.
Pickled pig's feet from hell?
I don't think I want to know.
Then he starts questioning the woman.
Vacation.
Funny, somehow I can't see you in hiking boots and a poncho.
What do you see me in?
Not too much. Something gauzy, high heels, kicking your legs up on stage in Vegas.
Oh yeah, this guy's a real charmer.
This trip was his idea.
So anyway, she mentions that she's there with her husband George, who is recovering from a heart attack.
I'll be seeing you.
I'm sure you will.
Put that down!
Don't open that jar. Yeah, definitely don't open that jar. Later that night, Bateman is hanging out in the bar, and the lady, whose name is Anne, joins him. And she opens up a little about her husband.
George is a lot older than me. A lot richer. And probably smarter.
She also realizes that he's a private investigator.
I saw your business card.
I should have known.
George!
But oops, here comes the husband.
George, you're not supposed to drink.
Can it? You're not my mother. You don't cook bad enough to be my mother.
Burn?
George! Your pills!
But yeah, this guy clearly has health issues.
What do you want? Thank you.
Meanwhile, Hallett is putting something in a jar under the most ominous lighting possible.
Rest for the weary.
Back to the bar, Anne goes up to bed, leaving the guys alone.
It tracks a man like a dead cat that tracks flies.
God, both of these guys are awful.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the woman just saved your life.
She saved her credit cards, her Porsche. If I die, she's cut off like that. It all goes to my sister.
But George mentions that Anne was the one who talked him into coming to the hotel.
I'm supposed to be taking it easy. You know what that means to me? Atlantic City, 24-hour room service.
Anyway, he knocks one of the jars off the desk, but it miraculously doesn't break.
Put it out my tab. You probably will anyway.
So I'm relieved this didn't break, young fella. And some of my special pickles.
Sure, pickles.
Are they a favorite of Mrs. Coomer's?
Why don't you take this batch? See for yourself.
Meanwhile, George goes upstairs. They start off having a bit of a tiff, but Anne promises him that she wants to work on their marriage and be a better wife and all that jazz, and that seems to put him at ease.
You must be starving, darling.
She also offers him a pickle from one of those jars.
I could just get them open.
Yeah, give it here.
Go ahead, honey. Pop them open.
Turned out to be a jar full of face hugger. Yikes, that took a while. Of course, Bateman hears the commotion, and she just says that George went for a walk.
Funny, I didn't see him leave, and I was sitting downstairs the whole time. Doesn't add up, the setup here. I can't figure it, and that bothers me.
Bateman thinks she poisoned him, but that doesn't explain the lack of a body.
See what I mean? Things don't add up.
My husband went out for a stroll.
Without his
And you
clothes.
forced your way in here with some wild paranoid fantasy about...
Wait a minute, a second ago you came on to me. You knew he wasn't coming back tonight.
There's a tussle, and she ends up confessing what actually happened, but tries to play it off like an accident.
I thought it was preserved and then this thing flew out and... God, it was horrible!
But yeah, she hated her husband and brought him there to kill him.
He swore to me that if I ever tried to leave him, he would do things to me so that no other man would ever want me. And I do need a man. A real man.
What, you think maybe he can tell you where to find one?
If you knew when I saw you how much I wanted you.
Well, she clearly has bad taste in men. Anyway, they end up doing it.
You don't blame me, do you? About George?
As was mentioned earlier, she was not in her husband's will, so she obviously didn't kill him for the money, so Bateman believes that she had a good reason for doing it.
There is no body. If you open the jar in the light, it attacks and just latches on to the nearest person and uses them up. Afterwards, there's nothing.
But it turns out that because there's no body, the husband is technically missing, so she still has access to his money for a while.
It's a lot of money, Jack. I don't know how I'll manage it all, actually. I guess I'll need someone with a good head on his shoulders to help me out.
God, you two deserve each other. The next morning they leave, but not before each of them grabs a jar.
Don't look so surprised.
Yeah, I think Hallett was hoping that Bateman would open that jar and he wouldn't have to worry about getting caught, since apparently this hotel is where people go when they want to kill someone without leaving any evidence, so who knows how many deaths he's partly responsible for.
You taking it with?
You never know when it might come in handy.
But that works too. Afterwards, Anne tells him the lie about her husband going for a walk and that she's getting a ride into town by Bateman, and slips him his payment.
Enjoy your pickles.
I wonder what they're planning to do with those. Insurance, I guess. And so ends Jar. This episode had a really interesting premise, but I found most of it kind of dull, and I wasn't a fan of Bateman. He was a bit too much of an asshole, and I didn't care for him ending up with a woman after he made misogynistic comments about her. He's also unappealing as hell. That porn stash suits him a little too well. What is it with monsters having unattractive guys getting it on with super hot women? At least give us straight female viewers some eye candy too. The monster was interesting. I liked that it was basically the ultimate murder weapon, and that death scene was pretty brutal. But everything around it was just kinda meh. I also noticed that there was no resolution to the missing woman that Bateman was looking for in the beginning. I guess the implication is that she was also a victim of the jar monster. It's funny that Hallett seems to be channeling Judd Crandall because he was played by Fritz Weaver, who you may remember as another Stephen King character, Dexter Stanley in Creepshow. Anne was played by Gina Gershon, who ended up in Showgirls, is now in Riverdale, and was also the voice of Catwoman in The Batman. It was directed by Bette Gordon, who also did The Mother Instinct, which is a lot better in my opinion, and she has 2 more episodes coming. It was written by Peg Holler and Bob Schneider, who also wrote Parents from Space, Rerun. They also have a couple more episodes coming. Considering everyone involved, I feel like this episode could have been better. So that's about it. This is probably a short video, but not short enough to pair this episode up with another one. Next up is The Demons. See you then.
You're not my mother. You don't cook bad enough to be my mother.